Hey podcaster, I'm Tim Walberg, your podcast performance coach, with another actionable tip so you can grow your podcast authority, generate leads, and convert with ease. Today's tip is start stronger. You have 30 seconds to convince a new listener to keep listening. You already know this. But why do I hear so many podcasters that don't seem to get it? They start with an update on their life, or the weather, or their dog. I've even heard someone start with a full minute about how they can't seem to get comfortable or figure out why their mic isn't working. It was working last week. I just don't understand. Hey, edit that out. It's a complete waste of your listener's time. And if you're trying to attract and keep a new listener, odds are they're moving on to another, perhaps more efficient show. In this episode, I'm going to break down the essentials of a powerful podcast intro so you can assess how effective yours is and fix it for greater impact. Before we break down the key elements of a podcast intro, I want to clarify that I'm talking about the intro of your show. This should be consistent from episode to episode. Some podcasters have a professionally produced intro, something I talked about in episode 23, but I encourage a live read on this every time, so the listener is engaged from the start. There are two other potential intros that you might have in each episode: the topic intro and the guest intro. Again, I'm only talking about the show intro today, but I have lots of episodes on those other intros, and I'll put the links in the show notes for those. Before we dissect the effective podcast intro, let's talk about it as a whole. What is the point of the intro? You want to compel a listener or potential listener to keep listening. This is why I usually refer to the intro as the podcast promise. What are you promising the listener if they keep listening? Think about it. The intro is like a contract. What are you promising them if they agree to keep listening? We got to remember, listeners are greedy. They want to know what's in it for them. What's the payoff? When they hit play, they're thinking, is this worth my time? They know their time is valuable. So how can you convince them that your show is worth their time? What can you promise them? Just because they hit play doesn't mean they're going to keep listening. Here are the key pieces of your podcast intro, aka your podcast promise. The first part of the promise is the name of your show and who you are. Since you're making a promise, the listener needs to know who is making the promise. Keep it straightforward. I don't need to know every single one of your awards, accolades, or resume details, that you're the best-selling author with 3 degrees, 25 kids, 3 cats, and the details of every job that you've ever had over your 20 years of industry experience. I don't need to know all that. It's too much. So keep it simple. The second part of the promise is them. You need to convince them, so you need to mention them in the promise. And this better not be a laundry list of every single type of person who can benefit from your show. Get focused on who the show benefits the most and call them out in your intro. If you struggle to niche, I did a series of episodes on niching. I'll pop those into the show notes too. Make sure you are really clear on who your show is for, and let them know that they are in the right place by calling them out in your podcast intro. Next, you need to let them know what they can expect to get from listening to the show. Not this specific episode, but the show itself. What is it that you deliver? Is it insightful conversations, enlightening case studies, actionable tips, or a deep dive with thought leaders and industry experts? Be crystal clear about what specifically you deliver every episode, but don't make it a catch-all laundry list. What is the key thing you deliver? The fourth key piece of a powerful podcast promise, the fourth thing your podcast intro absolutely needs to have, is the outcome. If someone listens to your show episode after episode after episode, what kind of results will they get? This is why it's so important to know who you are talking to, because to deliver a valuable intro and have a powerful podcast promise, you need to be really clear about who you're talking to and the problem that they have. You need to know the reason they're listening to a podcast. What is the problem you want your podcast to solve for them? Or what problem do you want your listener to believe you can solve for them with your service or product? Include the solution to that problem in your podcast intro. You want to assure them that there is a long-term benefit to listening to your show. That's the promise. Let me share an example of a powerful promise. One of our clients we worked with a number of years ago, she works with CPAs, and part of the promise that we created was ultimately work less, make more. Ultimately, this has evolved over the last few years. And so now our last part of our promise that we've come up with is I help overworked CPAs go down to 40 hours and then down to the exact number of hours they want to work without giving up profit and without hiring. The reason this works is because it very clearly states who the podcast is for, overworked CPAs, and the result they want, working less without losing profit or having to hire. By the way, any accountant who doesn't want that outcome isn't ever going to be a client of hers. The podcast isn't for them. Attention, all of the accountants who love overworking, no need to listen to this podcast. It's not for you. This is the power of your podcast intro. It not only attracts the right listeners, it repels the wrong ones. Okay, so here are those 4 elements again, so you can analyze your own podcast intro. Number 1, name of the show and your name as the host. Number 2, who the show is ideal for. Number 3, what you promise to deliver. And number 4, the ultimate outcome and benefit to the listener who tunes in regularly. Put your podcast intro to the test and see how it measures up. Having a podcast intro is going to set you up to attract your ideal listener. And when you do that, your podcast is going to serve them, you, and your business. If you want to build authority, generate leads, and make more sales with ease, you need the right listeners to stick around past the first 30 seconds. A great outcome for your podcast begins with a great intro. And I hope that's just the tip you need. If you feel like you're not sure if your podcast is generating enough of an ROI for you or your business, you need to analyze more than just your podcast intro. Check out my free podcast audit, a diagnostic tool I created for entrepreneurs who want a podcast that's a kick-ass marketing tool that generates leads and makes sales easier. If that sounds like you, check out the link in the show notes and instantly get access to your free podcast audit today. Making sure your podcast is dialed in is going to improve your podcast ROI, which is why you're podcasting. So check out the free podcast audit. I put the link in the show notes, or you can grab it at podcastperformancecoach.com. I'm Tim Walberg. See ya!